Hi, good afternoon. My name is Jonathan Gonzalez, and I will be presenting today what I learned during our course in programming language concepts. And I kind of wanted to do it strictly based on PowerShell, a programming language that I currently use in my current job as a systems engineer. That's how I was able to understand a lot of the course, just assimilating it to my day-to-day work. So first of all, what was the main objective here? It was just about understanding the core ideas of the programming language concepts class by learning how I can manage systems, basically. As a systems engineer, I was able to understand a lot of the language functions and a lot of the fundamentals to understand my role better and feel more secure in being able to do my job. That's a lot of the stuff that at the end of the day I wanted to understand during this course. So first of all, what is PLCs, right? What is programming language concept? Well, it's just basically a blueprint theories of all of the languages on just the ground core of how they're built, how they're defined, how they're translated by the computer. And just a general universal ideas that all languages have, like the control flow or how they structure data or the semantics, the ideas, the theories behind what they're trying to realize. And the objective of the class itself is that once we understand these core elements, these concepts, we don't have to just memorize these programs word by word. We can actually understand what they're trying to execute, and we can learn to make the same exact objective or actual language that's being done from one specific programming language and being able to execute it in a second or third or fourth or fifth or whatever other language we want, but do the same result. It may not do it effectively, it may not be doing it better, but it can be done. And that's when we choose what language is best suited for us depending on that objective. So that ability is it lets us evaluate those new languages and just be able to select smarter and build better solutions based on that problem or that solution that we're trying to resolve. So one of the big takeaways that I wanted to approach, first of all, is just paradigms, understanding them at the end of the day. They're just models of how to solve a problem, right? And as a systems engineer, I learned that there's a lot of them that I apply on a day by day. And something just as simple as the imperatives. Imperatives are just a checklist for me, really. If you want to compare it that way, it's just a step-by-step, do one, then do the other, and then you're done. Or do this, but if this happens, then do this, and then you can do that, right? And in my regards, I understood it as when I created any type of batch files, or when it created any type of scheduled scripts that needed to be executed on a specific time, on a specific day, to do specific things on maybe hourly or on a daily basis. That is what I did as an imperative language, or imperative program. But then we also have objective oriented, which to me is super important because at the end of the day, the language that I use mostly is PowerShell, and PowerShell manages basically a lot of object-oriented language. And then, for example, I manage a lot of Active Directory. So Active Directory does have mostly, if not all of the things inside of Active Directory is learned as an object that has properties, and it does actions based on that, which is object-oriented. And then functional, which is just predictability. It depends on what we're trying to troubleshoot. Across, for example, in my environment, let's say, for example, if I want to make a report that filters data based on students that, I don't know, have a incorrect location, I can filter this on a specific way to make sure that it always generates the same report with the same result that I'm expecting, right? And have it been done in one specific area, one function, instead of a global code, because if I get something wrong, then I have to go through the whole code. Binding, scope, and execution, right, is another thing that I understood or held on into this class, which is just like binding is when a variable gets value, basically. It's what type of value will this variable get? Will it be an integer? Will it be a string? It will be a Boolean. Like it depends, and that is what binding does. It defines that, and the scope is just the neighborhood, right? Where it lives and how that connection interacts with the rest of the code around it. Because it's so important to understand these two things, because these two things play way more of a big role than we think of on being effective as a code and being secure, because that way we understand and we know that there may not be flaws in our code. Something to make sure about that is having a strict control of that scope. We know where that sensitive data is, and since that data can be managed through where that code lives, we don't have any leak. In my case, we don't share information like admin accesses or even passwords or anything like that could leak from one side or one specific piece of code and then leak or filter to another piece of code during that script that I wrote. So it's what makes us make sure that everything is secure. And obviously, it avoids runtime errors. It avoids having any type of error where we can see that either data or string is not an acceptable value, and then when we try to do those kind of the type of runs, it could be done dynamically, based on like databases that we hold. Now, types of systems and the exception handling during making this code is also a very important thing, because we are able to monitor the kind of data that we're using while we execute this code. We can understand strong versus weak typing, which basically means we're able to aggressively protect this data that's being used for any type of corruption. If we have an exception handling, which is very important, is we are able to maintain services, or we can even keep the code running without having it to just fall flat, on its face when there is an error. It could gracefully stop, maybe even log the stuff that we are having problems with, and then just stop the problem. And a very crucial thing about this is that if we do have logs or even like a comment on the error, we're able as coders to be able to go back and make sure and see what that problem was so we can correct it. So having all this learned, I wanted to kind of, as I said before, focus on PowerShell as my main language that I use on a daily basis. And first of all, like, what is PowerShell? So PowerShell was launched by Microsoft in 2006 as just a framework to be able to use under different platforms. Sorry. And what they meant or they wanted was to do a single language that could speak, to the universal operating system that existed at that time. Specifically now, we could do the whole Windows servers, we could do Linux servers, or even Mac OS machines. And the big thing about this whole thing was it also did object pipelines, and basically that's very important to me, because again, if I manage AD, Active Directory, everything inside of AD is a very object-oriented base. And using pipe, I can manipulate, or I can speak to these objects specifically without even creating variables or anything else. Why? Because it already exists. And I can do new objects, create new objects. Like, for example, when I need to add a new user and create new accounts, stuff like that. We're able to do that a lot more gracefully. Now, the syntax and the control structure for PowerShell is it's designed to be more clear. What that means is that most of PowerShell's it's just consistently verb noun wording that was conventional by Microsoft, and it's very strictly upheld by them to make it as simple as possible. You can read something as simple as set AD user or get AD user, and you can understand from what you just said that you're trying to get something specific from a user, right? That's what they wanted. They wanted to make it so easy of you reading it to understand what you wrote, and fundamentally be okay. I understand it. And this also syncs to the .NET framework that is also just a fundamental piece of PowerShell. Something so specific like when I'm trying to pull information for a student, let's say student IDs or their location, I can set, I need student IDs and just give me the int, just give me the number. That's all I need. There's no string, there's no characters, just give me the numbers, like stuff like that. Or I can even manipulate objects, like setting group policies for a specific object of computers or even users, which are also objects. So that's kind of how the syntax works for them. And then going into a little bit of the type system, PowerShell is a little unique on it because they're very dynamic, and they do type checking at the runtime and not during the runtime, which it is strongly typed. What that means is that it makes the script easier and quickly, but PowerShell is able to enforce the types, and then if it doesn't know how to do this run because of a specific type, it'll stop the operations. And if it doesn't make sense, it'll try to dynamically change it depending on what it's trying to do. But if it sees that it's going to cause an issue, it will immediately stop the run, and it will log what the problem is, and it'll give it to you and tell you, hey, this is the problem. Go and look at it, and then tell me what you want to do afterwards. Because if I keep going, it's gonna fall flat. So that is very important to me, because now when I'm trying to run 30 to 50 to 60 users and just hit enter and let the script run, I can confidently say that if I can leave it running and there is an error, it will stop the error instead of producing the error and cause major chaos in a live environment. Now, for the supported paradigms, like we said before, I use all three actually, in my role, specifically, nightly backups I had mentioned before. Nightly backups are a big thing. It's not even through PowerShell. We can also do it through our VMs, running again through PowerShell. I can make a script that always pulls or always saves a backup, and that's imperative. A do this at this time and then save at this location. That's a big thing, right? It's what we do. It's what I do. And then obviously the object oriented, it's normal. Why? Because at the end of the day, what we're doing there is everything is object oriented within PowerShell Active Directory. It links through all of them. Now, memory management, it does use the .NET garbage collector, just to know that whenever it's used something, it throws it right into the trash to not uphold memory. And it's huge because we don't have to do it ourselves. We don't have to do it manually. And it's one of the big factors when some languages make you do it manually, and it causes memory leaks if you do it manually. And we don't have to worry about this through PowerShell. PowerShell can do it for us. There has been some problems when it's trying to do that kind of thing, specifically when having a very big task, with operators. So we do them through methods and stuff. And just to kind of recall on the strengths and the weaknesses of PowerShell, like we said before, it's just deeply integrated into Microsoft, like with AD and Microsoft 365 now that it's cloud facing, and the object pipeline is a must. It saves a lot for my type of work, but because of this very interpreted language, this language that's very cross-platformed, it is very heavy CPU inducive, and calculations for CPU is very slow. So if we do depend or want to manipulate a large database, it's not the best language to do it with, because at the end of the day, it'll take longer, and because it has so much power within the platform, within Windows, it is one of the major security risks where hackers try to attack through using that. Using that platform as the number one. Why? Because you're able to become an admin quickly through PowerShell having so much integration with Microsoft. Now, for its future trends, one of the things that we had talked about before was just that cloud platform, the open sources of it. It's able to use in not just Windows, but you can also use it in a Linux environment. You can also use it in a Mac OS environment. So that is a big thing, and they keep developing it, keep making it bigger and better. And since it's open source, you were able to manipulate it depending on obviously other people's changes. And one of the major focuses that they're doing, and I can understand this because we as a district right now are also moving into this, it's cloud management. We're currently gracing ourselves into Azure, and they are pushing to make PowerShell be a lot more tightly implemented into the cloud infrastructure of Azure. So that is a future focus where they want to make sure that PowerShell is able to be done in a cloud environment. Now, just for the conclusion of this, like how I got this out of the course, I just want to start off by saying that PowerShell itself, to me, was just a simple routine copy paste kind of program for me, or language program, sorry, for me, because I always troubleshooted based on like, see if it works. If it doesn't work, modify this or modify that. But I never understood the syntax. I never understood what it was trying to do based on the language that I was writing. And if the script would fail, or if it was something wrong, like I inputted a wrong data type that I wanted instead of a string, instead of an integer, I would just Google it and I would just paste whatever it is, and I would never understand why it was like that. And grasping these ideas through this course, I'm able to understand why that change was being done. Now I understand, okay, when I search this is why it was throwing me this new change of code, because this is what was incorrect. And because of that, I feel a lot more secure in being able to create something easier. Instead of writing 18 lines of code, I can now feel easier to understand and manipulate objects and make that code run into 3 lines of code. Why? Because I'm able to understand the fundamentals of what the language is trying to understand. And just at the end of the day, the course did provide the foundations that I had mentioned to write these scripts and to be able to make them secure, to make them reliable, to not fail in live environment for my current K-12 district that I work for. And I feel a lot more trusting in myself to be able to just read the language, read the code, know what it's doing, or what it's trying to do, and if there is an error, try to fix it. Or even better, if I see that it's not the right language to do this specific this specific solution, then I'll write code for a different language that does make it more efficiently. So that is one of the big things there, and because of that, I'm just able to understand it better. I want to thank you for this course and for this time, and I greatly appreciate it. You have a good day.